Guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. Sean the Fork Chop Forker, Henry May, Vance Nesbitt, James Baker, and our guest tonight, over there, Amy Boo. Amy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on the show. I asked you months ago to come on, and I wanted it to be live, so I planned it for the summer. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad you're here with us. You're always a pleasure to be around. One of my favorite people, and you just bring a whole new breath of life to the Bigfoot. I don't want to say mystery, but the research community. You're a lot of fun, very positive. I enjoy it, and I'm glad you joined us tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. That was very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, you skipped The Bachelor for us tonight, which I'm really appreciative, right?
I did. It's The Bachelorette night with my mom. She's in the other room watching it. Well, I'm in here, but I'm not bitter because we're recording it. So it's all
there you go. But she's here for us, guys, and for you, the listeners out there that have tuned in to hear Amy. Vance, James, Henry, what's going on, guys? Glad you're with us here as well.
Well, things are good over here. So.
Yeah, everything's good.
You had tornadoes, Sean. I think it was a little more exciting by you than it was by me.
Yeah.
Yeah, here nor there. We missed out here. We just got the very wonderful alerts, which, by the way, they haven't changed the graphics on the television since like the 1970s, which I know that's something that not probably be upset about, but because it saves lives, but you could at least make it look a little prettier. But I think the reason they haven't changed it is because it's a system that still works.
Right.
And that's probably more important, right? A system that saves lives, not one that looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll have
Jamie.
to...
Hey, Jamie.
Oh, Jamie King. I'm like, who the hell are you guys saying hi to Jamie to?
Why?
My God. Already, the beginning of the episode, you're throwing me off. But, guys, we got a great show tonight. We got Amy Boo with us here. You can't say just Amy. It's got to be Amy Boo, as we said offline.
Amy Boo.
So, we're going to get the show in a row. Amy, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got started in Bigfoot?
Well, a little bit about myself. I'm just a normal person. I never thought about Bigfoot much, if at all. You know, I saw Sasquatch when I was 8 years old and scared the crap out of me in the theater, and saw Harry and the Hendersons in search of all that kind of stuff. But besides that, never really thought about Bigfoot. And in 2012, I had an experience that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole. So now I'm here. But as far for more of my background, I am a teacher. I'm not currently teaching, but I'm a teacher in Ohio, also an editor and a writer. I've been working from home writing grants lately. I started my own small business. So anybody out there needs a grant for something, I'm your girl. I went to clown school, so I have that in my background. I make really good.
I think we all did.
Balloon. Yeah, I make a really good animal balloon, so I'm good at that. Just made a peach pie. What else? Actually, my mom made it, but I'm pretending I made it. I helped. I was moral support. And I live in Ohio. As far as Bigfoot goes, I am a former BFRO investigator. I now have my own project called Project Zoobook. I'm the co-founder and kind of coordinator of that. I have my own little thing I do called Amy's Bucket List Expeditions, where I speak at libraries and for kids like scouts and just different things like that, getting people kind of interested in Bigfoot. I'm an Ohio certified volunteer naturalist, and I am part of the Olympic Project. So when I'm not in Ohio, I spend as much time as possible out in the Pacific Northwest with those guys, and so
And a great group of guys to be attached to, right?
Wow.
absolutely, absolutely. I thought I would never get involved in a formal group again, but when Derek and Shane asked me, I didn't think about it too long to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. So, and as far as like I said, as far as me getting interested in the subject, my initial experience is not that exciting, as people who say they saw Bigfoot and they're sure what they saw. I am not sure about what I saw, but I was a passenger in a car. I saw something standing along the shoreline of Andrew Reservoir outside of Youngstown, Ohio. It looked to me like what I would think Bigfoot is supposed to look like. And it was about 100 yards away, which is why I can't say for sure. But I got so intrigued by what I had seen that I started Googling Bigfoot. Very quickly realized that lots of other people said they've seen such things. And whether or not my thing that I saw was Bigfoot, to me doesn't really matter. It just was the impetus to get me looking and reading reports and reading books and, just get me interested in the subject. How's that?
Well, that's great. That puts it all together in a nutshell for anybody who had questions about Amy. There we are. You got it. So, Amy, it seems like you're really more interested in the educational aspect of all this, not just researching it, but putting an educational spin on the topic. That seems to be very important to you. Why is that? This field desperately does need a presentation and representation, and I'm happy someone's doing it.
Thanks. So, my very favorite thing to do, and I'm going to be walking while I'm talking because my mom's cat got here, and I'm going to let it out. But my favorite thing to do actually is to be out in the forest and looking for myself. But we can't always be out there and have to do some other things. And even before I started looking for evidence myself, and I do that quite a bit, I just don't really post about it a lot on Facebook. It's more my own little thing that I do. I started reading, like I said, like right after I saw whatever it was that I saw, I started reading every book I could find, every report I could find, and very quickly became interested in the history of all of this, and like, what are all these people seeing? Not only what did I see, but what is everybody seeing? Is there any legitimacy to this? Are we wasting our time? And I also liked all the different characters that were involved in the search. Another part of my background, writing a book, which we can talk about later if you want to. I kind of lucked into the whole scientific I do now. I met a young lady who has a scientific background, and so do all of her coworkers. And then we kind of started our little project and brought in more scientists. And it really wasn't something that I set out to do. It was just something that happened. And now that's grown quite a bit in the last couple of years. And there you have it. And as for teaching about it, I was a teacher at the time, but I didn't set out to be like, oh, I'm gonna start talking at libraries. I'm gonna speak at Bigfoot conferences, things like that. If somebody asked me to speak at one library, I guess they liked it, and then more people started asking me. I lucked into, I think it's a combination of luck and hard work, really. But I was fortunate enough that at that first library talk, there was a gentleman who came up to me at the end and he told me that he went to the wrong talk and he was supposed to go down the hall to see a lady talk about the birds of Costa Rica. So he's like, well, but then I heard you were talking about Bigfoot, so I decided to stay. And that ended up getting me a speaking engagement with the Audubon Society. And then that
Nice.
ended up getting me in with the Ohio Division of Wildlife in some different state parks. So it's really been just this path that has opened up for me, and I followed it. And then as far as like teaching kids, I just, it's part Bigfoot and it's part the volunteer naturalist side, where I just want to get kids outside. If they'll come outside for Bigfoot and not for, something else, like to learn about snakes or anything like that, if they'll come out for Bigfoot, then I'll teach them about Bigfoot.
Vance?
No, I was just, I was like, that's nice. That's awesome. I think, getting the kids started at a younger age and get them familiar with the forest lands and things that they may never have seen before, it leaves their mind open to maybe there are things out here that, we haven't seen as a society. So, no, I like that initiative. I think that's great. I used to do it with my kid. I'd bring them out in the woods and, just let them explore. And they would see things they never thought of before. Just stay away from the poison oak and ivy. That's all I wanted.
Right. And it's like we always say, we might never find Bigfoot. I might never find Bigfoot. I'm not the luckiest Bigfoot researcher, if you want to call me that, in the world, because I don't normally find a lot of evidence. I try really hard. I don't find a lot. But I always say you might find something else out there. You might find a new flower or a new bird or something that's supposed to be extinct, like the Bluff Creek Project did. So it's still valuable. So parents that might be hesitant to have some Bigfoot lady come talk to their kids, if I put it that way, then they're like, okay. And then when you really talk to them about the evidence of Bigfoot, then a lot of people get intrigued.
No, very true. And they have a program out here by me, and they do it once a year for kids, and it's called Find Sasquatch. And, they leave little Easter eggs throughout, the small portion of the forest preserves out here, and the kids run around and find all these clues, and then, it leads them to a guy in a suit, and it's a big disappointment, but, the kids get a kick out of it, and I kind of like that.
It is fun.
Henry,
Amy,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just trying to give us plenty of time because technicals, because that wouldn't be a live show without technical difficulties, right? But Amy, you said the personalities got you drawn into this. Who are some of the personalities that just captivated you and just took you into it?
Oh gosh, just reading about John Green and Renee DeHinden and all of those guys, that were around. I mean, I want to say at the beginning of all this, that's not true, because we all know that it goes back further with Native Americans and, much further than that. But for modern Bigfoot times, I guess, Jerry Crew, the Patterson Gimlin film, all of that is just fascinating to me. And, I had met a gentleman several years ago that I had this suspicion that he maybe had more to do with Bigfoot than he was given credit for. And I know, Henry, you know him, and I'm sure that you guys probably do too. I'm a relative newcomer to all of this, and I realized that. I got interested in 2012. And it's been a while now, but at the beginning of it, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know people really thought Bigfoot was real. I didn't know it was a possibility. So I never heard of these people. But I had met Tom Page at a conference. And he's a gentleman, for those listeners who don't know, he's a gentleman from Ohio who was being honored for his work with Roger Patterson and Peter Byrne, and he was presented more as a financial backer for them, and he was that. He did, uh, give money for their research, and this was after Tom Slip died. But I had this, I don't know, I just this quest, I guess, to find out if he was more than that. And it took me 2 years to run him down. He used to live very close to me, and then he moved, and I couldn't find him. Finally found him, and spent another 2 years about having lunches with him. We'd have chocolate cake and turkey sandwiches and milk, and he would tell me all of his stories. And it wasn't just that he was the financial backer for a lot of expeditions and things. He really was involved, and he used to be a big game hunter. He got interested in the Yeti, and then when he saw the Patterson Gimlin film back in the day, he was like, "Oh, there's something that I can get behind because it's something I can do here in North America." And so I have collected a bunch of his stories. Sadly and unfortunately, he passed away last year, and I'm working on a book to, kind of tell people what it was that he did and his thoughts and ideas. And he and I were working on it together. So when he did pass away, it was really hard for me to pick up that torch and run with it, I guess. But
Yeah.
as I've been working from home, I've been putting a lot of work into that as well.
Well, that's fantastic. I can't wait to read the book because there is a lot of history that kind of goes unnoticed, unrecognized, just kind of goes off to the wayside. Henry started this with us last week when he just mentioned a book that he had procured off eBay called My Travels with Bigfoot, and a gentleman by the name of Charles Edson. And I wasn't familiar with how kind of important this guy was in the history of Bigfootery, but from a backwards kind of offshoot perspective. He literally saw Bob and Roger Patterson the day they filmed the Patterson Gimlin film. He saw them in the woods on horseback and validates that he saw two men filming in the woods, and he thought, or riding horseback, he thought they were surveyors. So he didn't pay much attention to it. Later, he would identify them as Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. But it's these little people that, I don't want to say little people, but these people that don't seem like they're very important, that have much more to add to the story. And that's what's tremendous about this field. It's not so much the guys that did it, but hey, I was a guy that was there, and it adds so much more to this history and this richness of the field. You talk about John Green and Rene de Hinden and, the others of the Four Horsemen. Those guys, they created a lot of drama, not much different than today. I mean, today we're just not writing books and bashing each other, or yelling, but, well, I guess we still are, but there's other ways to do it, like, Facebook. But there's there's always been that conflict, but it's funny that if you can look past that and really get deep and granular into who they are, you'll really learn, and it just adds so much more to this field. Like you said, you were a relative newcomer in 2012, and you jumped in, and you were amazed by how many people were interested in this. And it is even though it's a small cultural subset, there's a lot of people in it.
Right. There really are. And a lot of fascinating people, a lot of good people. A lot of bad goes on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Everything is new again, for sure.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about these discoveries and finding these people. And sometimes, we don't get a whole lot of time with them, sadly. But, John Green was somebody I was fortunate enough to interview on this show back in 2006. But I never got to meet John Green in person. Henry did. I didn't. So it's probably my largest regret is I never got to meet my hero in this field. But so many other, I feel like I've got to know him so much, not just from his works, but from what other people have told me. So somebody's got to write the John Green book. So maybe when you're done with Tom Page, you can do John Green.
Yeah, there's so many people I wish I would have met. I would have loved to have met Dr. Bindernagle, especially. And we always say, I know the Olympic Project feels the same way, but with Project Zoobook, we want to carry his goal into the future of making the subject less taboo in scientific circles. I would have loved to have met Grover Krantz. These are the people I'm interested in, because even though my venture down the scientific side of Bigfoot was kind of by chance, I love it. And it's really, I guess I've kind of found where I'm real comfortable. If I'm not able to be out in the forest and working myself, then I love to be listening to these people and writing about it, and trying to find more people to get involved. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, it's really important too, because everybody involved in this has a story, and it's two stories: the story of who they are as a person, but then also the story of how you got involved in this and why do you care to be involved in this, Bigfoot story, right? So, no matter who you're chronicling, there's always, great feedback. Their biographical stuff and the "this is why I'm into Bigfoot" crap,
Yeah.
The two sides of every people. Henry, what's your story?
Well, my story is that I've had a lifelong interest in this, and I know Amy's a relative newcomer to this, but we were all once relative newcomers to this, and we learn things through the years, and we can always.
Some of us have,
Amy.
Henry. She'll come
Yeah,
back.
some of us have.
They always do. Some of us have learned things, Henry. You have absorbed. You haven't learned. You are the walking Bigfoot encyclopedia.
Mm-hmm. And for our audience, to just take a quick break here, we are very aware of the audio background noise.
Absolutely.
And it may very well be Amy's connection because she's at a remote location. So it could very well be that. But yes, we are aware of it. And thank you for letting us know.
You're in a remote location. How dare you, Vance? You're in a remote.
I know.
Hey, there's Amy. She's back.
Yay.
Am I here? I don't know.
Yes.
You're here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'll bring up a quick point, and I know we didn't want to focus too much on the PG film, but with the information that Henry brought to the table from the book, that he confirmed that he saw what he identified two individuals, and then I mentioned to Sean that really puts a perspective that maybe it wasn't a hoax, because if there were hoaxers, I think they would have all traveled in a group together so that they would not be separated in the woods or get lost and then try to meet up later, and it would have just turned into a big cluster pile. So if you're only identifying two people, that immediately told me that there's a good probability it's not a hoax, because it was just the two of them. So that's a tiny bit of information, but go ahead, Amy.
No, I'm sorry. As far as the Patterson-Gimlin film is concerned, people always ask me what I think about it. And first of all, I always say I love Bob Gimlin no matter what. I don't care. Patty or no Patty, Bigfoot or no Bigfoot. But I've never put all of my eggs in that basket. I think we have a lot of good evidence for Sasquatch. I am not a 100% believer. I hope that they're real, and most days I think that they're real, but I'm the type of person I want to see one for myself. But I'll tell you something that made me really think. I mean, there's many reasons why I think the Patterson-Gimlin film could be real, but one of them was because of Tom Page. As I was interviewing him, he was very sure that it was real, and he connected with Roger pretty quickly after that, and he put a lot of money into searching for these creatures, and in with his faith in Roger. So for somebody that knew Roger personally, and right around that time, it was a little while, but I was impressed that he was willing to put money, because I mean, not that money's everything, but his judgment was that Roger was telling the truth. So that to me was a little impressive piece of that puzzle too.
No, very true. I like that. Very true. I don't know. Henry, James, throw something commentary into that because
Well,
that's
I agree. I agree about the Tom Page having that faith in Roger Patterson is that's a good thing.
Mhm.
And I actually have a copy of Roger Patterson's book, which is signed by Tom Page and Bob Gimlin. Not signed by Roger Patterson, surprisingly enough.
Mhm.
So
Go ahead, Bake.
I really think like we get into the subject and we don't mean to all the time, but we get into it. I stand with the old school of it. If it was a fake, they've held on to that secret so long that it's ridiculous. And secondly, is there would be easier ways to punch holes in it. Now, I'm not saying like we've said multiple times, is it's not about whether it's real, that video is real or not, whether we believe that there's something. I have theories. I've talked to Forker about it, different theories. And I know we've all had theories of how, that it could be something else, it could be whatever. Every theory we have isn't based on that video must be real, otherwise everything is false. So I think we need to I think we need to respect what happened. I think and I'm sad for when the man dies. I feel that it's going to be a piranha frenzy of making up shit as we go. Sorry for the swearing, but and that we're going to have a lot of people just trying to make a nickel off tarnishing his name.
Yeah, I hope that's not the case.
Yeah,
That
that's a
would
sad
be.
reality of it. Before we jump back into this, guys, we have to take our mid-show break. Folks, we got some news coming your way. We'll be right back after the news with Amy Boo. Stay tuned, folks.
Well, thank you, Sean. This is the Sasquatch Experience, stranger than fiction, news, and stories, brought to you by Dr. Squatch Soaps. 100% handcrafted, 100% money-back guarantee. Just click on the banner or just search Dr. Squatch for some huge savings. And our patrons. Become a patron for as little as $2. And when you think about it, that's about the cost of a Snicker bar. It's relatively inexpensive. It's only $2 to become part of the experience. Just visit patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience. The world's tallest horse has sadly passed away in Wisconsin at the age of 20. Big Jake was 6'10", nearly 2.1 meters, and weighed an astounding 2,500 pounds. And for those of you that are bad at math, that's a ton and a quarter. The Guinness Book of World Records certified him as the world's tallest living horse back in 2010. The owners were quoted as saying, "Big Jake was a superstar, a truly magnificent animal. Big Jake was born in Nebraska and weighed 240 pounds at birth, and that's 100 pounds heavier at birth than a typical Belgian foal." Source, The Huffington Post. And back on July 8th, wildlife officials in Colorado said they're trying to locate a bear photographed with a plastic bucket stuck around its head. Colorado Parks and Wildlife said the bear had been spotted at least twice with a plastic bucket stuck around its head, most recently last Thursday morning. CPW spokesman Jason Clay said the bucket doesn't appear to be causing the bear any pain or affecting its mobility, and the animal appears to still be able to eat and drink. He said officials are concerned about what might happen when the bear puts on weight later on in the season. If you live in the area and you happen to see this bear with a bucket on its head, you're encouraged to call 303-291-7227. Again, 303-291-7227. Oh, and look here, a Florida man story. This one's not as weird as most that we hear, but still kind of strange. Back on July 8th, a Florida man taking a walk on the beach found a 4-inch tooth from a prehistoric megalodon shark, just 3 weeks after he found a smaller tooth from the same species on the same beach. Jacob Danner said he was walking on Fernandina Beach on Thursday morning after Tropical Storm Elsa swept through the area when he came across the 4-inch tooth. Danner said he found the tooth near where he found a 3-inch megalodon tooth 3 weeks earlier. I'd like to go down to Fernandina Beach and find me a megalodon tooth, and I know you guys probably would too. Source for these last two stories, the UPI. And a man finds a witch bottle with a human tooth and hair while searching the woods. A father of 3 exploring his local woods recently discovered an old artifact that he probably won't be displaying in his home. Instead, he says he's worried he may have stumbled upon an old curse. Chris Langston found a pile of broken dishes in the woods near his home in England and decided to inspect it. Southwest News Service reports. He then found a bottle underneath which contained a human tooth, hair, and yellowish liquid that appeared to be urine. Langston described the find to SWNS, saying the top layer seemed to be from around 1900 to 1910, as there were some commemorative cups and things broken on the surface. On the latest visit, I found a blue poison bottle and broken doll's heads, which was creepy within itself, which date back to 1900. Source, Fox News. And for many of our listeners of the Sasquatch Experience Stranger Than Fiction News, realize at times I do, well, a little bit of a fun fact. But this just happened. Back on July 9th, lottery officials in North Carolina said the Carolina Pick 3 drawing came out with the numbers 000, resulting in nearly 10,000 players winning a total of $3.6 million. And that wraps it up for this edition of the Sasquatch Experience Stranger Than Fiction News and Stories. And now back to our amazing guest, Amy Boo, and the crew.
Boy, you had too much fun in that segment, Vance.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all.
Folks, welcome back. Thanks, Vance, for that lovely news segment there. Stranger Than Fiction News with Vance Nesbitt. I guess, and stories. You got to put the strange stories in there, too. And, folks, as Vance said, if you look, join the Patreon. Starts at $2 a month. We're not going to go into the semantics of that tonight. We're going to get back to Amy. And, Amy, again, thanks for joining us here. So you're relatively new to the field. How did you decide you want to start investigating these reports? Because there's a difference between just getting interested and then just jumping in and getting your feet wet. True.
Can you hear me okay on this?
Oh, that's wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Amazing.
I don't know what was going on. Sorry. Well, I'm a curious type of a person, and I've always loved Sherlock Holmes. That was my thing. Read all the stories a million times as a kid. And I just, I had my experience, so I wanted to know if other people had experiences as well. So, I'm sure you guys know this. If you wear a Bigfoot t-shirt or a Bigfoot hat or something like that, you can go to the grocery store and people will start talking to you. And so I would start to get people that would come up to me and kind of say, hey, I saw something. Hey, I saw something. So it was just very casual. But I, about a year after that first experience, no matter what it was, by me under reservoir, I decided I was going to file a report with the BFRO, because that's, if you search Bigfoot reports, that's kind of what you come up with. And I didn't know any other place to go. And so I went there and I met some people who, that they took, one took my report, and I kind of started hanging out with them and doing stuff with them. And a few years after that, they invited me to be part of the BFRO in Ohio. So I jumped in that with both feet and I started looking up all the reports in Ohio. I did a lot in Pennsylvania as well, because there were a lot of reports that were sitting there. And I'm in Pennsylvania more than I am in Ohio, actually, when it comes to Bigfoot. So I live real close to the border. And so I just got intrigued by that, and when you're sitting there or standing there and talking to someone who filed a report and it's a grown man and he gets really emotional about what happened, um, it's hard to think that they're lying to you. I know a lot of people lie. I mean, just as a teacher, I know a lot of people lie. I believe that there's some misidentification involved, but there are just some reports that are really, really intriguing. And
Hmm.
when I decided to leave the BFRO, kind of go out on my own, because I am involved with the Olympic project, but they're mostly out in Washington State, so I'm still, live over here. Um, I'll tell you, I started getting a lot of reports on my own. And one of the ways I do that is myself and my best friend and research partner, Tina Sams, we go to hunting and fishing shows. So we go to those and we gather a whole lot of reports. And I'll tell you what, the first time I went to one was because a friend of mine who I know some of you know, Dave Groves, he
Yep.
had the opportunity and wasn't able to go. So he's like, "Hey, Amy, you want to do it?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." So that started all of that. And now we go to different shows. And that first one, I was shocked by how many hunters and fishermen came up and told me their stories. And I think it was last year actually, Tina and I went to just two different shows, one in Pennsylvania, one in Ohio. And between the two, we got 87 new reports.
Wow.
And
That's
they're good
tremendous.
reports. And they're ones that they hadn't told anybody else. They hadn't,
Wow.
made a report. So even if one of those is true, it's exciting. But a
Right.
lot of them had a lot of good details.
Well,
Okay,
I think
so
it's
go ahead.
ballsy to start going to one of those because you put yourself up for a lot of heckling and I don't want to say intimidation, but being made fun of for attending such an event that's so serious minded, right?
Right.
Fishing and hunting. Did you run into any resistance in your first event? Get a lot of snickers or
Not much. I expected it. I was
yeah?
expecting the tomatoes to be thrown and all that, but I'm I don't really, I've never been the type of person who cares if people make fun of me. Especially for something like that,
Yeah.
I was a little bit concerned, like if we were just going to waste our time more than
Yeah.
what people thought. And we had some people that would walk by like, haha, Bigfoot, and I thought, well, maybe we were going to be the sideshow, and just sit there, but it was still fun. But as soon as I got there, it was the night before it started and I was setting up my booth and the other, um, vendors like came over and started telling me their stories. I looked up, I was putting down carpet. I look up and there's like 5 or 6 guys standing there in their camo and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, we saw one. Hey, I saw one." And sometimes sometimes people would giggle about it, but I mean, I don't blame them. I thought Bigfoot was stupid,
Hmm.
before
Until right? Yeah.
until, right, or maybe not stupid, but I didn't think it was real, especially not in Ohio, of all places.
Hmm.
So it doesn't bother me because I understand kind of where they're coming from. But like a lot of times you'd have like a guy with his buddies and they would kind of like, haha, Bigfoot. And they'd look at some of our stuff on our table and they'd keep going. And then one of them would come back. The other guys would keep going and he'd come back and be like, well, I didn't want to say it in front of them, but I saw something or I heard something or something happened to me. So
Hmm.
I don't know if it's just that Tina and I aren't very intimidating, So, and I always say she's my secret weapon because she's the one who she goes hunting and fishing and all that. So she can talk to them about that, what kind of lure do you use? Where'd you get your last buck or whatever? And I'm the one that goes in for the kill with the Bigfoot stuff. So it's been very productive.
Cool.
So
I
your
had a
main
question.
calling card is a hat. Is that what you're saying? You wear a Sasquatch hat, and that's really what draws it in most.
A lot of times it does, or a necklace or a t-shirt. That's just, I mean, like if I'm out in my regular life.
Hmm.
I was on a shuttle bus in Oregon. It was either Oregon or Washington, I think. No, Washington, sorry. Going from the airport to get my rental car, and there was a gentleman sitting there, and the bus driver had remembered me from the night before because I had a Bigfoot shirt on. And he had asked me what I was doing in town. And I'm like, you really want to know? Looking for Bigfoot. So, he's like, "Oh, you're the Bigfoot lady." He was still there in the morning when I had to go back. And he was talking to me about Bigfoot. And there's another guy sitting kind of across the aisle from me just listening. And it ended up that he worked at the Indian Reservation, like with their fisher, the lakes and stuff and the rivers with the fish for the government. And he started talking to me about, he's like, we found some really interesting nests. And my ears perked up because I hadn't said anything about the Olympic project or the nests that were found. So you never ever know where you're going to find a contact. And he was a really good contact just from wearing a t-shirt. So I always put myself out there a little bit.
Henry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are some of the top hot spots that you've looked into in Ohio, in the Buckeye State, or in Washington State?
Yeah, I've been a lot of places. Like I said, Henry, I don't find a lot. I try. But my favorite place to go in Ohio is in Columbiana County, like down at Beaver Creek State Park or near there, but in not in the park itself, actually. There's some different spots on private property where I go that there have been a lot of different sightings. I spend most of my time actually in Pennsylvania in the Allegheny National Forest. We Bigfoot people like to say we have a research area, and I guess that's what it is. But I have just a small area, very close to where my grandpa had his hunting cabin growing up. And when I started doing those BFRO reports, there was a slew of reports right from that area, and I still get a lot. And I go in there, I have my recorders up there. I spend as much time as possible. I'm a couple hours, like less than 2 hours away from it. So I go as often as I can. I interview a lot of people. I try to find evidence there and doing kind of a micro study. And that's one of the things with my project Zoobook is the scientists are starting to work with the researchers on these micro studies all over the United States. So it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the best places besides, the Olympic National Forest itself out in Washington, my favorite that I've been to is Mount Hood National Park in Oregon, and went out there with Shane Corson and Chris Spencer, and Kevin Morrison was with us, and just had a awesome time. Caught a lot of really great audio. We backpacked in several miles, caught fish for supper, that whole fun remote camping that I love the best.
Mm-hmm.
A real experience, a real camping
love it.
experience, right?
Yeah, we're going to have
my favorite.
Shane on the show here, up and coming pretty soon. So
Yeah.
Tell him I said hi. He and his wife have grown to be really good friends of mine and almost like family. So just good people, really good people.
Well, we only bring the best on here.
Yeah.
Aw. That's because you're the best.
Well, we try. Sometimes we, the bar, moves every so often.
It does.
Now you say Allegheny. Did you meet Dave Groves through his sighting, Amy? Because he had a really good encounter.
Oh yeah,
out in the ANF.
I think so. I mean, I met him at a conference,
Okay.
but then I heard about his sighting. So yeah, his isn't too far from where I go.
Okay.
And I always tell him that my grandpa had to give up his hunting cabin because he had like 100 or not 100-year lease, like a long lease. I don't remember how many years it was, maybe 60-year lease or something like that. And the government wanted the land back to put like ATV trails in there and snowmobile trails. So I'm like, it was you.
Dave, you're part of the problem for that, pal.
Yeah, right?
I'm
Right.
sorry.
Just kidding. I know it's fun.
Sorry,
No, but
Dave. No, but my area is not too far from there.
Right.
In Clearfield County is where I do a lot of my work and where I had my experience out there with Ray and Dustin, and it's a good spot in Pennsylvania. It really is.
it is.
You're one
I'm
of the
in
border
Forest
people.
County.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a very interesting. I'll share that story with you when I see you sometime. A drawing I did
Okay.
too from a witness out that way. She was an older woman and her husband. They live out in the Cook Forest year round.
Mm,
And guys, you want to talk about trees? They have trees out there so big you can't even wrap your arms around them. It's old
Hmm.
growth forest. It's huge
beautiful.
forest, and it is. It's very beautiful, but it's remote. And these folks live out there all year, and they had experiences over the years. And I was fortunate enough to spend some time with them, probably in 2012, I think, is the sighting, is when I actually dated the drawing. So it would be around the time you got into it, Amy, is when I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
out in that area, and it's beautiful. And I think every state, likes to think they have their Squatch areas or Bigfoot areas, but I tell you, when you start getting to some of these areas, guys, it's just deep, and you can feel it. It just feels different than, going out to the woods in Clearfield. Even before I had my experience out there, Amy, it felt different than the woods at home. And maybe there's
Hmm.
mystery to it. I don't know. But do you feel that way when you go into different areas? Is there something different in the air, or do you think it's maybe just subtle romanticism from the internals kind of pushing it?
I think it could be both or it could be either. I'll tell you what, the Alleghenies, I go to Cook Forest a lot too. My family goes there. I got a lot of reports from Cook Forest as well. But when I go to the particular part of the Alleghenies where I love to camp and, go off trail and just, meet witnesses and everything, it is a eerie feeling. I laugh about, I've read all of David Paulides' books, and I'm not sure whether I think Bigfoot's really involved or not. But I always think it's funny that Pennsylvania is its own zone or whatever he
Yeah,
calls
his own
it, because
cluster.
yeah, his own
Hmm.
cluster. And the Alleghenies, they do have a different feel to them. I agree, they really do.
We
Hmm.
have a show coming up on that next month. It's called The Missing, and that's one
Ooh,
of the things we're going to talk about is there the potentiality for Bigfoot to be behind some of these? And it's a question I'll pose to you, Amy, since we brought it up. Do
yeah.
you think, I mean, it's not a comfortable thought, but
I mean, I feel, there's so many different viewpoints about what Bigfoot is, if they exist.
yeah,
And I will listen to anybody's viewpoint. I don't claim to have the truth or be an expert on it. But what I'm interested in is if they are some type of a primate. And I just think any type of a primate has the potential to be aggressive,
oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
so I don't see why it couldn't be true. I don't know.
Hmm.
And depending on the type of primate it may be more closely related to, it could have those even more violent tendencies,
Right,
as we see in different species of primate, right?
Hmm.
right, right,
Not including ourselves, folks. Don't
right.
send your hate mail. I'm just saying. Amy, you've been in the research now. It's 2012. You said so. You're coming up on 10 years. What are you doing different than other people? Do you think what works for you, and what gets you the best results?
You know, I have been very blessed. Maybe blessed is a better word than lucky, to get to do some pretty cool things. And I'll get people that call me or write to me. They're like, "How'd you get to do that? How'd you get to do that?" And I always say I try to be kind to people and I try to be honest and I just try to work really hard. It's not really a bigger secret than that. So that's what I try to do. But I people I've gotten some people that have said, "Oh, you're not the only person that's trying to do this scientifically." And my answer is always, "Yeah, I know." I never claimed to be. I know there's a lot of people that are looking at things scientifically and other groups that have scientists in them. I just kind of sing the praises of Project Zoobook because it's my group, so it's
Right? Why
what
not?
I'm closest to. And I feel that we're doing some pretty cool things in there and we have some really awesome people that weren't a part of Bigfoot before we put this together. So I guess um, I guess maybe that's what I'm doing, not differently than everybody, but maybe differently than some people. Is I have a combination of getting out in the field and doing my own research, and then also doing grunt work, of writing and finding these scientists. It's not always the easiest to find these scientists, but I'll tell you what, we've never had a scientist who has been on one of our calls that has said they don't want to come back, even if they had nothing to do with Bigfoot before.
Mm-hmm.
It's about perspective, right? And how you
Mhm.
show up and how you present and, perception. There are a lot of organizations out there, right? Hell, let's be honest, there's a lot of podcasts. Okay. I could go out and say Henry and I were one of the first original ones and blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
you
We've been
are.
doing
It's
this
true.
longer than, but, we're welcome to everybody's opinion. I like the diversity that's out in the field. I like being diversity of opinions. I think we could do a little bit more in terms of diversity, but that's another topic for another day.
Right.
And I think it's what you say that puts a lot of merit to that, Amy. Putting in the work, being honest, being kind. I guess firmly putting it, don't be a dick to each other out there.
Yes,
Like we need each
There you
other
go.
in
that's the
this.
truth.
I'm not going to be able to make it across the country and touch every mountain face or investigate every report. But if you can network and build that with people you trust, and Amy, you work with some people that have some really good energy. Some of my favorite, the Kings, had Jamie
Yeah,
and
they're
Jenny on
awesome.
here, right?
Mhm.
Sparky,
Yep.
you got some real good people you work with, and I think you guys, and many others. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. Sorry, all of Amy's friends that I'm, not mentioning. I just know a couple, and they're my friends, so I shout out to them.
Yeah.
But I really look forward to what you guys bring to the table, and always you have an outlet here to share any of that if you ever find the need, because that's what this is about: sharing good research and participating in it
Mm-hmm.
together, right? And I think
Right.
in today now more than ever we need that, because I think we're going to be up against a wave of negativity here again soon. You can see it coming.
Yeah,
Mm.
I
it's
had
You
a
true.
know,
question.
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Okay.
I had a question for Amy. Who are some of your mentors in this? I know you mentioned a few earlier, but who are some of you individuals who have kind of inspired you and kind of been the spur, as it were, to keep going?
Oh boy. Well, that's a hard question in a way. Um, some of the people that have taught me things that I think have been very valuable are people like Shelley Covington, Montana.
Oh yeah.
I just admire the time that she puts in the field and the
Mm-hmm.
energy that she brings. And she was very kind to take me out with her when we were in Washington and we did some camping and stuff like that. So, um, Diane Neese, Kathy Strain. Kathy Strain, I just met, through my own podcast a few weeks ago, but I know her and I've read her book and follow her. So she's kind of been a big influence on me and she didn't even know it, you know. Um, yeah, Adam Davies is a good friend of mine, and I just love his sense of adventure and all of I always say I want to be him when I grow up, just because he's he's also an educator, but he is to me the real deal because before he was being asked to speak at conferences and getting helicoptered into places, he was sludging through the rivers, in his
Mm-hmm.
tall boots and stuff, and had to fund himself and follow his dreams. So I really admire that. Um, you know, Derek Randalls and Shane have taught me a lot. Um, there's a lot of people that were around at the beginning for me when I first started doing this, but I feel like I've kind of clawed my way through it a lot. And I don't mean this to sound uh, arrogant at all because it's not how I mean it, but I've kind of
Mm-hmm.
taught myself, with the reading and the getting out and doing it. And a lot of times I do things by myself. So, I've kind of been my own teacher in a way. And there's lots of other people that I'm just drawing a blank on, but I want to say this because we've talked about how, I'm relatively new. I mean, I'm going up on 10 years pretty soon. So, been around for a little while, but I don't know how it was for you guys when you started in this community, but I had a hard time with people saying, "Oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Oh, she's not an elder." I've gotten that a lot. she's,
What the
she's
hell's an
doing.
elder? What's
I
it? What's
don't
this
know,
elder
but
bullshit?
I'm not one.
Hey, let me tell you, I'm going to look right into the camera and say this quick. I've been in this field longer than a lot of people. What the hell makes someone an elder? Somebody email me,
know.
squatchexperience@gmail.com, and tell me what the hell an elder is, please. I think
Exactly.
isn't it something you pick off a bush
Yeah.
and you eat? This elder
Right.
bullshit.
But I've gotten
Anyhow,
that.
Amy,
I don't
I'm
know
sorry.
either, but I get that a lot. But I
Jesus.
just want to say, for people who are just getting into it now, they might be the one to find the evidence. You never know. I get it that people have been doing it for longer want to be the ones to find the smoking gun, but the reality is that sometimes when you have a fresh new pair of eyes, they might see something differently and be the one. And you know what? You can't That's another secret, I guess, that I have is you cannot have an ego and you can't be worried about becoming Bigfoot famous, which isn't real. And you can't be competing with everybody. It's just would be too exhausting, so
You know the
I'm not
best part about
interested.
that? The best part about that, Amy, is outside the world of Bigfoot, nobody gives a damn
Nobody.
Damn. Right.
who
That's right.
any of you are. That's what
Right.
makes me
That's
laugh.
right.
And just one more. If anybody ever calls me an elder, I'm going to kick you right in the balls or whatever you have, because that is
But
the
you're more
most
elder than
ridiculous.
me.
I,
Yeah.
but it's such a mind-numbing state. I'm going to piss somebody. I don't care. Okay, like Vince, you got to move. You got to move me along here because I'm
Yeah.
fixated on elder
Okay.
now.
All
Like,
right. Amy, here's my big question of the night. A drum roll from anybody would be great. What does your thank you. All right, James. Thanks, buddy.
okay,
What's your mom's opinion of all of this?
Oh, my mom. Man, she's still in there with the Bachelorette, or I'd have her come in. But um, she was the person I called after I saw this thing by Meander Reservoir, and I'm like, "Mom, I think I just saw Bigfoot," and she's like, "Okay," and she listened to me. She would support me no matter what I said I saw, I think so. But she listens in. We have our Zoobook calls usually every other week, and we'll have new scientists that come on and we talk about all kinds of subjects, and my mom is always there in the background listening, and she is fascinated by all of it.
That's
My
awesome.
siblings are kind of think I'm crazy, but again, I don't really care. Well, my younger sister is supportive, but my mom has always been supportive, and she'll tell her friends about it. She's like, "No, I think Bigfoot's real and you should listen to this and you should read that." So she could give us all a run for our money as far as knowing a lot about the topic.
Right. Well, that does my heart good. When the
Yeah.
parents support the child in
Yep.
something that they're interested in, and then they become even more enthralled because you're
Yeah.
sharing information. Oh, that's a huge step, and I applaud her for that. So
And my
yeah,
daughter is very supportive too. So
that's
I'm going to be a
even
grandma here
better.
pretty soon. So
Yay!
hopefully
Well,
my
congrats.
grandson will
Congrats.
like
congrats
Bigfoot
again.
too.
Yeah. Well, we know it's a grandson, so that's
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
congratulations again.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Maybe
I got a
he
heads
will be
up on
the
that,
Adam
guys.
baby. Yeah.
Yes.
I
told you
had an
about it.
exclusive, but I can keep my mouth shut. I can keep secret. None of you
Finally
guys knew
allowed
that,
to
but I
talk
knew.
about it.
Right? How about it?
Yep.
Oh. I see
Amy,
how you are.
any final thoughts for the listeners tonight before we wrap it up?
Oh gosh. Thank you for listening, listeners. First of all, I feel like I'm the same way as a teacher. I get off on all these tangent things. So I hope I brought something to the table tonight. But if it's not that, we welcome researchers as well. But if there are any scientists listening and you would be interested in hooking up with Project Zoobook, at this point, we have anthropologists, primatologists, primate zoologists, marine biologists, wildlife biologists, forestry workers, all kinds of people. Um, if you are interested in talking about Bigfoot, even if you're not convinced, and that's fine, Jenny, I'm just looking at that quote. I love her so much.
Me
Please
too.
contact me. My email is bigfootamy@gmail.com. So it's really easy to remember.
BigfootAmy@gmail.com. Folks, you know me, Sean the Fort Chop Forker. You can find me anywhere on social media at Sean Forker. I'm not that hard to get a hold of. Henry, where can folks find you?
Henry B. May the 4th on Facebook.
Vance?
Oh, people can find me wherever I'm at. Facebook, Vance A. Nesbitt. What's the A stand for, Sean? Yeah, we
I'm
know.
gonna be
On
kind to
Facebook.
Amy's friend. Amy's friend.
Amy's friend.
Thank you, Amy. See, you're
You know
very
what
kind.
it doesn't? You know what it doesn't stand for, Vance?
No, what?
Elder. It doesn't stand for elder.
That's not even an A word.
I don't care.
Yeah.
An elder. It doesn't stand for an elder.
An elder.
Yeah. Go ahead, Baker. Where can folks find you, buddy? Besides under a bridge with the rest of the trolls.
Usually at my house playing with my dog, and that's not a code.
Oh, God.
You know.
And with that,
Oh, man. Well,
All
this
right.
has been
There you
fun,
have it,
guys.
folks.
Thank you for having me.
no, thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Folks, Sasquatch Experience at Facebook and Instagram, SasquatchExperience.com, and Squatch Experience on Twitter. Find us there. You have any questions, comments, concerns? We'll read them. We might not do anything else with them, but we'll read them. At that, Henry, take us home, Henry.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
That's right. Keep on squatching, folks.